we will go ahead and open this meeting and call for a roll call.
Chair Malone.
Here.
Committee member Lee. Here. Committee member Pietzel. Here. Committee member Becker.
Present.
Committee member Myram. Not seeing him yet, Chair. Committee member Huber.
Here.
And then we'll go to committee member Mate.
Present.
Committee member Smallwood.
Present, and I think Tim just logged in.
Great, noted. Committee member Sheldon. Here. Committee member Walker.
Here.
Committee member Exner. Committee member Hookinson.
Here. For now.
And committee member Williams. Here.
I now call for the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Second, moved by Sam, second by Jan, that we approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Moving on to the Sandy Urban Renewal Agency Biennium 2025 proposed budget. Representatives, I know we have a quorum, but do we have a representative from each of the agencies?
We do have Phil Schneider from the Fire District. Unfortunately, Chris Jones was unable to join us tonight.
But they've got a copy of the, this Jones has a copy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Is it a separate committee for
It's a
Sarah, or is it the same committee?
It's a same committee with the addition of the fire and the community.
Okay.
During the year, when it's not in a budget session, you guys meet with them, it's different, it's
But
not
Sarah-
us.
So the Sarah members vote. They vote?
Yeah.
Part of the budget committee
They vote
for this. Okay.
For
So
this-
they should be part of the roll call.
independent, separate budget.
Were they not? Did you not call Chief Snyder?
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. So committee member Schneider.
Here.
And committee member Jones.
I saw your beautiful face.
Chris is in Vegas. He won't be here.
Apologies. Yeah.
I thought it was gonna happen the last time. So, is there anyone here? Well, actually, I'll call for the staff report first.
Thank you, Chair. Well, good evening. I know that committee member Schneider has to leave at 7 p.m. So I will, it's not a huge budget. So I think Tyler and I will tag team going through the presentation of the SURA budget for the 23-25 biennium. And for members that are new to the budget committee, yes, the Sandy Urban Renewal Agency is a separate agency. It's a creature of the city, though. 7 city council members and 2 additional members sit on the SURA board. So SURA is the acronym for Sandy Urban Renewal Agency. And then the budget committee also serves as a budget committee for the SURA Urban Renewal Agency. So just like the city budget, every 2 years, we adopt a new budget for the Urban Renewal Agency. The unique thing about an urban renewal agency is that it has its own borders. Essentially, what is the urban renewal district is what we refer it to. In the case of Sandy, it's all the commercial properties within the city. This map, the light blue is all the properties that are included in the urban renewal district. The red outline there is our newest project, which is working fast to come to completion this fall. That's the 362nd and Bell Street extension project. I don't want to go too far into the weeds of how urban renewal works. I know the majority of the budget committee and the council, of course, has heard and understand how tax increment financing works. But essentially, when you establish an urban renewal district, you freeze the tax rates in, or the assessed values in that district, and that's called the frozen base. And then every year when you get growth, which includes the 3% statutory growth, and then any additional growth over that becomes the tax increment. And that's the property taxes that go to the district to fund debt service for bonds that pay for improvements that the renewal plan identifies. And the idea is that by collecting that additional revenue and be able to use tax increment to bond against, you can do projects in the district that will increase the value of the district more than what it would be if it wasn't a district and you're doing those projects. Sandy's has been pretty successful because of things like the facade improvements and the public improvements and the plazas and things like that, that encourages private investment so that you get more assessed value growth. And then eventually when the district is done and you've completed all your projects, which in the case of Sandy is probably in that 2045 range, the district closes and all that tax increment, it then becomes property taxes for all the districts that overlap their rental agency. So fire districts, the schools, although that money goes to the state pool, the city are all beneficiaries of the increased assessed value of the district.
Is that assuming that the district doesn't expand its boundaries and its list of things it wants to do?
It does,
before
yeah. And
2045?
yeah, and so this is 1998.
It was a while back, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, it's a
And you're going to go there when it started.
it is a district that has a lot of momentum and a lot of funding. And has been amended 4 times and with maximum indebtedness that's been increased, and I'll show that graph in a second here.
Did you say it's supposed to close when?
Well,
45?
it all depends on how
You're
much
like the
debt.
only cat in Oregon that's ever shut down an urban renewal fund before.
Oh,
Yeah,
the
Lake
county
Oswego.
did once.
Portland's
Oh,
done a
the county
few as
did?
well.
The
It's
county
Walton.
did
Yeah.
part of one
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
Jordan didn't like Oswego.
All right, so here's your budget summary. Obviously different than the city budget because there's only a couple divisions, and a little quicker to go through here. So the property taxes, that's a tax increment. Why is it dipping? You may have a question about. You know, it's also increasing, but we're also have now, as I think we projected several years ago, and then it finally happened. We're at the point where we need to revenue share. So the district has been so successful that we've reached our cap on how much tax increment that we can collect. And because it's been so successful, state law requires us to share that success with the overlapping tax districts, which does impact the district by a couple $100,000 a year. And so the beneficiaries are like the fire district that then get a little bit of that revenue sharing. We still get the 3%, right? But just any of the additional growth gets revenue share to the other districts. So that's why you don't see the continuation of substantial growth in the tax increment.
And it actually went down 100,000?
Yeah, because we implemented revenue sharing, I think, this fiscal year that we're in now. So now as we budget, we kind of set a new baseline.
And they rely on that now in their budgets, what we're sharing back with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mechanism that goes to the county. Into the tax collection. We don't pay directly to the districts. Interest kind of reflects, I guess, both the markets, but also the fact that we're proposing to spend a lot of money coming out of the district. We got some projects underway that's going to be utilizing the funds. Personal on the expenses side, personnel services. I think the change here reflects, again, and it's something I know has come up in the other previous meetings, but reallocation of staff. I think it has like 10% of the city manager's time, 10% of the deputy city manager's time, the planning director, economic development there's a portion in there for all the managing all the programs and grant programs. And so that's reflects that increase. Materials and services are the contracts and professional services and the grant programs now. So one change that was made previously, we categorize our facade grant, our TI grants, and the cover structures as capital outlay, but really these are grants that are not capitalized or not actually city assets. These are assets of the businesses that are utilizing the programs. And so we've moved those programs into materials and services to reflect that it's a reimbursement program. Capital outlay is the community campus park improvements, the $3 million there that comes from the bond that was passed to acquire the Cedar Ridge property and also do the fire district improvements. So we've been carrying forward those funds to complete this project. So $3 million is earmarked, and that it's on the design for that project is well underway. I think we're working on the 30% design right now. The 1.5 million is also in capital outlay, and that's for the Cedar Ridge derelict buildings out there, the middle school buildings, the gym, the pool. So we're working on plans right now for preparing the site with demolition and grading and earthwork to get the site ready for future construction. And then we've budgeted 400,000 in this biennium for all those grant incentive programs, like I said, the facade and tenant improvement programs. And then finally, 150,000 in materials and services as well. This is every biennium we have some projects going to design plans like the West Sandy or the old barn district, for example, concept planning work that we've been doing. There's contracts that we have with Ant Farm for all the flower baskets and the watering of those flowers and other downtown maintenance of the trees and things like that that all fall within the material and service line. And then the work plan going forward for Sura, obviously we have some big projects that the district's going to be funding, but we have a lot of funding coming in to Sura, and we had a previous session a couple months ago to kind of start talking about continuing talking about project prioritization and coming up with a project list and kind of a master plan and strategic direction that aligns with the financing projections for the district. And part of that is understanding what our bonding capacity will be for the next 10, 20 years. And I think the work ahead of us will be doing tours, obviously, of downtown, maybe consultant help coming out of the materials and services line, the opportunity to probably look at additional staff depending on the projects that we all want to undertake, and maybe even to help through the goal setting process with the council, because there are some exciting projects that we can do, but there's also some brainstorming that needs to be done to figure out what those projects are. A part of a redevelopment agency is to be being flexible when the opportunities arrive, to provide incentives to acquire property, to pursue things like hotels and breweries and other things that have been talked about in this community for a while that we would love to be able to leverage with urban renewal funding. So here's our $3 million concept design. No, just kidding. This was funded by SDC. So remember, this project is funded from both urban renewal, but also Parks Capital, the Parks Capital Fund from the city budget. This was a concept design work that Rochelle and her team and consultants have been working on with the community, with the skate park and the pump track, playground, parking, trails that connect to the Sandy River Park. Really a beautiful new community park that, like I said, is well underway in design. If you haven't seen it before, here's the schematic of that park. This is phase one. Part of the work has been to work on 2 phases to understand if we do phase one, there's also a bigger master plan that would expand the skate park and the pump track, adding some additional features and space for that to really be a fantastic community amenity for all ages, a lot of active uses, but also an economic draw, which I think has been a council interest and goal for a while, to build something here that will attract things not just for our community, but from around the community to energize Pleasant Street, the downtown as well. I mentioned that we had gone through this with the SUR board a couple months ago with some funding projections and different funding scenarios. I just wanted to take a quick look at that. I know it goes beyond just a two-year budget that we're looking at, but it's kind of important to set that context for how healthy this urban renewal district is and the opportunities for funding new projects in the future. So as we look at our projections, these assumptions that we're using, what's already incorporated in this proposed budget, funding, continuous funding for the grant programs of $400,000 per year, of course, administrative costs to manage the plan. One thing I have to mention, because the chief will bring it up, is that there's still 1.4 million for our plan that we need to account for and earmark for the fire district. They are a beneficiary, they're impacted by their renewal district, but the unique thing about the Sandy plan is that we partnered and worked cooperatively with the fire district for them to make improvements to their facility and equipment. So there's 1.4 that's remaining. It's There's no formal arrangement of how that works. I think it's a dialogue at the regional agency board to kind of set those priorities of when the fire district is projecting to need something like facility or training facilities or major equipment that can be funded from the plan.
Is there a formal arrangement on them getting it?
Yeah.
So it's in our contract, and it's been looked at that the fire district is owed a certain amount of,
It's 10% of the maximum indebtedness. And that,
And their remodel, earthquake proofing and all that, their current building took the rest of it up. What the total amount you were going to.
That was part of it, yeah, there have been other expenditures between 1999.
This is old history and it's, I'm sure, changed, but there was talk at one point, the land that's next to the operations center down there.
Yeah.
We own the land next to it, and there was talk of them building some sort of a training facility on that land with, you know, the training tower and all that kind of stuff for practicing. Is that not even?
It's
would use
come
more
up,
than the
it's been a couple
1.4
years and, you know, now we've kind of pivoted,
you need
recognize that
land
we're gonna
now.
need it
We
for
need that
Sandy
now.
Net. It's kind of our idea that that would be an expansion for
That's outside
operations.
the renewal district.
so.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
industrial.
you're right. Yeah.
That's true.
Sure.
So just to be clear, though, it's formalized that they get a certain percentage of it, but not necessarily formalized how they get it, like how, when and if when. The when,
The board decides.
The board decides when, and then the budget committee would approve.
And
but a certain amount has to be allocated to them. Right.
Yeah.
Just not having read the contract
Yeah.
myself, that's just what I want to make
And
sure.
that is unique to ours, because I know that when we did it, we were either the only or one of the only urban renewal districts that did that kind of sharing with any other affected entity.
And that's why we had a good relationship
Yeah, but it's also, fire department's gone through some changes.
in the last few months.
Yeah.
And I agree with you.
So that, I mean, this would be a future question about how Clackamas Fire then, you know,
Yeah,
gets
yeah,
brought into using this money and
potentially, yeah. It will still be Sandy Fire. You know, it's a IGA that it's a contract, so you know we're still going to be working with Sandy Fire. And yeah, the chief is retiring, and there's a question for the board of, you know, I know the interest of who's going to serve on the serve board, Clackamas Fire for Sandy Fire going forward, and then what their needs might be.
But
you know.
any needs they have would have to be within the boundaries of the urban renewal district, not out. of-
Yeah, and you know,
Clackamas.
they need to be careful too. It can't be on staff, it can't be on operations. It needs to be
Yeah,
something that is
investment.
capitalized. Yeah. So not knowing if they have any needs right now, we're not including any projections for using that in the budget in the next 2 years. And I think part of the goal setting with the serve board would be engaging with Sandy and Clackamas Fire to kind of like, what are your needs in the next 10 years? So we can anticipate that, because if we have Pleasant Street, if we have other road projects, if we have Plaza, things that the council may be interested in, like other community campus improvements, we need to account for that 1.4 million.
And
not
then make
forget
sure
about
they
it.
understand the parameters.
And so here's the fund projection. This is just, you know, it's not including any bonding at all. So, you know, they need fund balance of 21 million. Don't get too excited, because this is just, you know, what we're spending, or what we're proposing to spend in this biennium, and then just rolling forward with how much tax increments are going to be collected. It really gives you a sense of the capacity the district will have to go and issue another bond, especially when the current bond is paid off in 2031. You see the debt service at 1.8 million drop significantly down to 100,000. So that's when you essentially are collecting $4.8 million in the biennium to pay for debt. And yes, if that's a timing, then your district might extend beyond, you know, a horizon of 2040 or so.
How much are we rolling forward that doesn't affect our bond capacity? Like, because we don't have a lot budgeted for it, right? It keeps rolling forward. But I just want to get a feel for year to year, how much is coming into the fund that we can spend this year without necessarily affecting how much we can go out and bond against. Does that make sense?
So if you look at this budget, 23-25. Sorry, so this question, I just look at the numbers. So you have 3.9 million in tax increment, you have 1.8 going towards debt. You do have to account for, you have personnel and materials that are pretty ongoing expenses too. So you have to account for that ongoing. So this is the projection that kind of we backed into how much bonding capacity you had. And it was another like 1.5 million or something per year.
I think it was 1.5 million per biennium.
So we have 1.5 million per biennium. And then if you go back a slide, we use some of that in our grant program and stuff, correct?
That's included, and that's even included in these projections, that you have to account for administrating the plan, but also that.
So 1.5 is what's left after you take out what we spend on average every biennium in expenses for facade improvement, tenant improvement, all those kinds of things.
We can crunch those numbers and get back to it. That's-
No.
Yeah,
But I want to get out of here today, so I don't need you to
year.
report back. It's roughly about
About $700,000 per year, between what we're bringing in and what we're spending for all of our requirements that we currently have
700,000.
per year. So 1.4 to 1.5 per biennium of surplus or excess that's just rolling forward into the beginning balance.
So then
building
out of
up
that, how much
capital.
are we spending on average in grants and stuff?
In our projections, we have 200,000 per year in grant programs.
On top of the 1.4 that we roll forward.
That 1.4 for the biennium it reflects spending $200,000 a year on grant programs.
That's what's left.
That's what's left after you pay for all your personnel, all of your grant programs, all of your debt service. You've
We're
got
saying backwards.
700,000.
We got where I
per year.
wanted, but we're there.
No, but we're not all on the same page.
Okay.
Okay,
So rolling forward means after I paid for all my status quo expenses, 1.4 per biennium, 1.4 per biennium, right?
because our
700,000 per year after we paid all the grants, all
After
the
we paid the
salaries.
400,000.
status quo is several $100,000 in grant programs.
Okay.
Now, some years it's a little bit more than that, some years a little bit less, depending on how many, businesses apply or how many facades happen, but on average, we're spending.
So roughly
200-ish.
1.4.
Yeah, and again, that's, if you recall a couple months ago, that's where we came up with those different scenarios, because we have that excess tax agreement that it's not excess, it's really, that's what we have it for, is to then go issue bonds. So we have the debt service, the 1.4 million in debt service. That will grow a little bit per year. And then if you wait, right, until 2031, we have that scenario, you have, 4 million.
Wait, so 1.4, I'm sorry. No, I know, but Dawn has a very big ask coming, so I need to wrap my brain around some of this. So 1.4 is the total of the urban renewal budget for all the years that we keep rolling forward. That's not just excess that we have coming into this biennium. We pay our expenses and then that's left. This is an accumulative total of the urban renewal fund.
So, okay, and then another way to answer this, if you look at, so we have 4 million in contingency,
Okay.
basically unspent or right now, that we
Yeah.
have not budgeted, that's available for projects that this committee and the board can say, hey, we have $4 million, let's go
Okay.
spend a couple million. Included in that is, yes, 1.4 billion.
That's
That is
from this.
every year or every biennium.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that feel better.
No, thank
So I think in the private sector, we call this retained earnings or something to that effect.
Keep it to the layman though. I'm not a
Yes.
business person now.
Transfers. Right.
4 is what we got. For this being biennium.
But that's after the
Yeah,
demolition of the buildings and
yeah,
the
that's after those
stuff, all the
projects.
allocations you've already made.
Yep.
Okay.
Which I think the point is, that gives us room to pick up projects and do things.
Right, I think we'll go into,
I'm sorry.
you call it your big ask, but it's actually something I support also.
Well, no,
But it's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, so continue with your, or
Tonight,
say,
you wanna
I'm
get done
done.
tonight.
Yes,
I'm about done.
Okay.
But again, like way to illustrate that for me, if you look at total resources, 11.3 million there. Total requirements for the fund is 7.3. There's there's 4 million pending fund balance that's available. So that's the bottom line. As I mentioned, we're capped on tax increment collections. It's capped, but we still have some growth with 3%, but we're now under revenue sharing. The 4 million in contingency that's available. There is capacity of 1.7 billion for additional debt for future projects. It's part of the work of doing goal setting that you know the board is interested in doing, and it's needed is looking at a dedicated position, which would take away from that 1.4, right? If you're adding more administrative costs, you know, going forward with the plan. But the city, you know, this is a pretty healthy, like I said, pretty healthy renewal district that has a lot of, you know, potential big projects to manage. If you're looking at the community campus, road projects, you know, and some other efforts that would probably take someone that could be dedicated for renewal at the higher level, and perhaps economic development. The existing bond is scheduled to be repaid in 2031. Again, that's a bond that paid for the fire district the facility, but also the campus and Cedar Ridge. And then, yeah, we need to continue to keep in mind there's 1.4 million that the fire district will be asking for at some point.
I already forgot about it.
We're talking 1.4.
The other thing that's on the horizon.
Not yet. I mean, it could, but it's not scheduled for that.
Well, and it's not, I mean, they already got kind of a bunch of it already. And so like if they came in after next year and we said, you know, we're gonna give it to you in 4 years, that's okay, right?
Sure.
It's whatever the board decides.
Well, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, we collect the money gradually, so.
The hopes were that they'd be forecasting out in front,
Yeah.
and communication would happen.
Phil,
They
did
have
you
bigger
have
issues
your
right
hand
now.
raised for anything? No? One thing that also is on the horizon, though, Jordan, is with 360 seconds, coming through, that doesn't particularly add to the valuation, but when the moratorium goes away, all of the land adjacent to it could reach commercial development, which would add to the tax increment. I mean, it would bump it up significantly.
Yes. Which will benefit the city and the fire district and other overlapping districts because of the revenue sharing as well.
Right.
Do you want to ask Phil if you want, he was talking quite a bit.
Well, I think he was talking to someone in his office, not to us. He's got somebody else on the phone.
Go ahead, what?
We just want to know if you had any input or anything you wanted to add.
We didn't know if you were talking to us, Phil, or someone in your office, so we're just checking in.
Sorry, I'm getting ready for a board meeting as well. No, I don't have any dad. It all sounds good right there. Just keep that 1.4 for us.
It's down to 1, but okay.
Okay, that's the end. Question?
Does Tyler have anything to add?
Oh, there was some questions from Councilor Walker. We
I think we
addressed.
answered it. You know, you do have the FTEs going down and yet the salaries and all that's going up.
It's the staff members that are allocated. So there were some cheaper staff members that are not allocated to that fund and more expensive staff members that are allocated now.
Yeah, that's not really.
Cost wise, they're cheaper. Their value is immense. Their cost
They're
is
just as
less
valuable.
expensive.
but they're
Less
less
expensive.
And then, you know, this whole idea that we're, you know, putting together a project list or even considering, you know, a different person or whatever. I just want to, again, reiterate the need that, you know, we talked about having a goal setting session for this urban renewal. And I think that's really something that we benefit from. I think it'd be helpful to have some outside help in that goal setting type session. And I think it's something we've needed for a while. So
Yeah, we had brought in Elaine Howard a couple years ago and she got to help, like, you know, maybe start the process. I mean, she's the consultant in Oregon that does a lot of the renewal stuff. And I mean, that was during COVID and it was virtual and stuff. I think like having like a walking tour of the district and then maybe meeting at the campus, you know, and standing in it or something. Yeah, you know, and doing it kind of offsite like that, but like actually seeing it, vision what projects can be
well,
done.
the Economic Development Fund and Bell Street 362nd visioning stuff that we've talked about would also weigh in on that, you know,
Yeah.
effort. So
Yeah, having
like I
some
said,
more urban
a lot of
designers a part
cool
of
things
that.
going on. I just want to make sure that we're being a little bit more mindful and
Yeah.
strategic about how we come up with our project list.
Yeah, and I can imagine some of those projects would be like, how do we partner with private developers on certain types of projects, like a hotel or other developments and stuff, and that's like really where, you know, getting additional consultant help or staff help to like navigate that, because those agreements can be pretty time consuming and intense. And, yeah.
Okay, do we have any hands showing on the thing for public comment?
Chair, we don't currently, oh, in the room we may, but not online.
Okay. Do we have public comment on the urban renewal budget? Anybody wanna? Scott, you wanna?
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, hi, everybody. There's a few of you here that I haven't met yet, but if you don't know me, my name's Minty. I'm
Get them close enough so that it can be heard.
It's pretty powerful, but if you want to just step forward just a little bit, thank you.
Scott,
That's the mic right there. Yeah.
That microphone out.
Hello, I'm Minty from Skaters of Sandy, and we're a community group that has been partnering with everyone working on the community campus park project. Specifically, we've been working on the aspects of the skate park design, and ultimately kind of got to really get involved in advising that and helping with the design. And one thing that we kind of kept coming back to over this process is that skateboarding has changed from like something that teenagers do to this like multi-generational activity. You know, there are grandparents who have children who skate, and they all skate together. And this is really, really exciting that we're hearing that there's this groundswell of support starting to happen to complete phases 1 and 2 of this park project with some of these urban development funds, if possible. Really, the park was designed as a complete vision that would provide areas for beginners, intermediate, and advanced skaters to all skate together, and then really provide viewing areas for the general public and people who are interested in it. And it's designed in a way that it really reflects the geography and the things about Sandy that are unique about this place. And we're hoping that it generates more interest and creates more end users. And really, in terms of how it impacts the economy here, I think it really dovetails perfectly with this whole urban renewal concept, because skateboarding is very, very popular. People travel from all over the world to go to places to skate and plan vacations around it. And Sandy is really positioned to become a destination city. Right now, we're sadly say a pass-through city. People are skating in Portland, and then they're going up to Wendell's and going over to skate parks over there. We want people to come here. This is a real great opportunity to make that happen. Really excited with what we've come up with, and I think it works much better as a whole than a small phase 1. I think people will be way more impressed when they see this amazing 22,000 foot skate park that they've never seen before, as opposed to saying, well, here's a real great park. It's kind of small. It's a great, a great improvement upon what we have. But I think this whole thing will really put us on that. So that's all I have. And yeah, we're always happy to talk to anyone about it. So.
Thank you.
I just gotta say, I don't get the adult skateboard thing. I get on the Peloton and I can't get out of bed the next morning. Like, I don't even understand how you guys do it.
I will say this, as a 49-year-old father of a 2-year-old, my skateboard time has to be very carefully planned.
Right.
And it doesn't happen every week, but it just so happens that Papa's dedicated skate time is 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Thursday nights. And this is important enough for you to forego my skating. I skated over from work, project and over here. And I'm really thankful you guys let me say something.
Appreciate you coming this week.
Yeah, and this has gone so fast, I might get a few runs in, but I'm gonna go to Estacada now because they have a great park. All right, so in the future.
Burn.
Well, you know what? You can take our transit that they have to use to get out there.
All right. Appreciate
It's the one that's right there on Powell Boulevard, on the way into Breck- It's always got tons and tons.
even the worst parks have lots of usage, and if you go to a great park, you're gonna see a ton of usage. And We need some barbecue grills in that plan. I just thought about it.
After that,
That's a very good point.
Yes, and he sent us all a letter that Jeff forwarded to everybody, so if you want to
Oh,
put that
yeah.
up on the screen or anything.
I do.
Yeah, we
Yeah, we got it.
okay.
Don't need it up there.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
everybody.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Be
job.
safe.
All right. Have a great night.
So if we're ready, I'd like to talk about my big ass.
Okay.
Your
Your big
what?
ass.
I put a K on it.
Emphasize the K.
So,
And everybody should have gotten his.
yeah, I sent out an email,
Preview.
to everybody. I don't need to, and we don't have to go through it, but if you didn't get it, just let me know. And in there, I wanted to kind of lay out the high level case for why phase 1 and phase 2 makes sense to do it at once. What Menti said is right. It's just going to make more sense to do it all at once. But the biggest reason for me is we all know phase 2s don't often happen. They're wishful thinking. We don't have the funding, so we call it phase 2, and it sits on a shelf. And we have a lot of,
The park right behind us here had a phase 2 that never got done.
even up with those barriers across the road, the road's never completed. You know, that's what, if there's an opportunity to avoid that, I'd like to. So the proposal that the difference between phase 1 and phase 2 is not much money. It's about $2 million as it's currently budgeted. That's the difference between the additional amount that would be needed at face value. By face value, I mean based on the designs and so forth, and that 30% contingency that's already built into those designs. What I'm asking for is $1 million in the urban renewal to go towards that. That $1 million comes out of that 1.4 that we add to the reserve every year. So that still increases our baseline year over biennium over biennium of what we have. It would still leave us opportunities to jump on other important things, not to mention the bonding capacity that we have, which is not significantly impacted by this event. In a separate budget meeting later, you'll see in the ARPA, there's a 500,000. So that if that's approved, that 500,000, we approve $1 million here, that's 1.5. That's not 2 million, but it gets us close, and that puts the burden on Rochelle to now make the most of phase 2 that she can within that budget set of parameters, which would include value engineering, going after additional grants, donations, and things to kind of plug that gap. But it would give us a cohesive park, a really fantastic cohesive park. We have the money. It's not going to get in the way of other things that we need to do. So I welcome discussion or questions, but that's my big pass.
I have just one. Does that, the money that you're suggesting, does that include the 500,000 that was projected for phase 2 in the 987 extra allocation, or is that on top of it?
So we have to deal with it separately. So this is $1 million from the urban renewal
So
budget. And then
But they go
in
towards
the
the same
next
project.
half of the meeting, when we switch to the city, we'll talk about that 500,000, but I will ask for that 500,000 to get there as well.
And just for the record, I support it. I want to do phase 2 too, just
Yeah.
for the record there. But I wanted to know if we were really talking about $1 million or $1.5 million.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
collectively, it's 1.5.
And then the total project was 2 for phase 2, so that's a 500 shortfall.
It leaves
If we
that-
approve it.
Correct. It would leave about 500 short.
Council has to get creative, Michelle has to get
Grants
creative.
and
Yeah, right,
donations and other things that would give us.
I just want to make sure I got the
Yes, matching money to do it too.
Carl,
There may be some development that I'm not aware of, but as I understand it, we were about $500,000 short in the budget for phase 1. And the ask now for the additional phase 2 puts 2 more million, which in my mind is 2.5 that we would be needing to come out to zero. But if we're only going to ask for $1 million and another half from the other place, that still puts us $1 million behind.
So,
Is that true?
so,
And I got next question.
so that was true at that point in time we heard it. So Rochelle's been crunching numbers, working with the architects and revising those numbers. So the current gap is 2 between the phase 1 and phase 2. It's just 2 million gap because the proposed budget has and other reductions have kind of started to meet that. It is based on getting that $480,000 grant that's applied, but
And I think that
everyone's
was
feeling
part of the
pretty good about
difference.
that.
No, it wasn't, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So to finish off, my opinion is I also support for phase 2 because it's crucial to be able to get past this piece where we always put up bare lots, big grassy areas that never get developed that were planned to. And I'm really thinking this is the time to do it. Plus, if we wait 4, 5, 10 years, it's going to be twice the money. Everybody knows inflation happens regardless of what goes on. And then finally, I think that we need to ask the skateboard people, the pump track people, all the other folks that would be using this is to see if we can't get some contributions from those folks as well. Have them come forward for us. There's money out there in the grant arena. And that's part of the piece I think that we should be asking them to get. So bottom line is I support the second phrase.
Jan,
Yes, what happens if we don't get that $480,000 grant? How does that work?
We have to go after more grants and we might have to value engineer some features. So a jump plan might get shortened or other features designed out.
So if you were short, say 500,000, you could still do the project by cutting back on something.
Yes.
So I'm for this. Don and I have had some conversations. So as you can tell, I was expecting this proposal. One thing I would say to add on to this is some of us add a little pressure to everyone here in our council or renewal board in our parks and rec. And that is, this can be a very cool park. And we're gonna have a pump track, we're gonna have a skateboard, and we're gonna have another playground. It's gonna be really cool. But what we are eliminating is where a lot of kids go and practice their football. And we're eliminating, where a potential for baseball and softball. And I remember my daughter's doing cheerleading, we'd go and the cheerleaders would be there and watch the youth football happening. A lot of activities happen here. So I just want to reiterate that, and we have it in our other budget committee meetings. We've talked about the need to buy this parkland and all that. But I really want to up the pressure for us, especially moving so strongly in this area to support biking and boarding and all that. We've got to do some stuff for our athletics, covered basketball court, softball, baseball, football, soccer, rugby, I don't know, but outdoor sports. Yeah. So.
Hey, real quick, guys, hang on, I'm sorry. We're getting a call, so I gotta go, but I wanna know how we're gonna maintain it. I wanna know about a maintenance plan.
Okay. Yeah.
That's great. In the interest of the fact that Phil has to leave in 14 minutes for his board meeting, what is the wishes of the committee in the room for approving this budget?
So I'm also in support of this, but I want to make sure that we're being smart about it too. And there's a potential gap of, over $1 million. I think you can value engineer something. Well, if we don't get the grant and
Right.
the other money, right? So I think there's a lot of things that need to come into play for this to be a really great project, and I'm fully in support of it. I also don't want to try to, if things don't fall, I want some contingencies there so that if things don't happen, we're not trying to value engineer something that we're not going to be satisfied with.
Right.
So I'm totally supportive of it with contingencies that the other things need to fall into place as well.
I agree. I don't like the word value engineering.
I always hate that word.
It's just like it instantly go to some bad places.
The reduction of value.
Because
the bargain game.
it's usually you hire someone, you pay them to find you savings, and their value is you finding you savings, and that's what paid for their paycheck.
That's right.
But on that though, back to Rich's point there, we're only saying 1 million. Why not 1.5 million?
Well, it is a
Okay.
total million.
No, for this, though,
Oh.
he's only suggesting 1 million. Because we're gonna have the other one, but that's also the contingency, but this is restricted to this area, and I get that.
If you
and
took 1.5 million from here, then you wouldn't be this 500,000 shortfall, and you wouldn't have to value the engineer.
This is what, the point, this is, you know, you can only spend this in the urban area. The thing that's coming later can be spent on a lot of other things to other competing interests. What you lose is being able to use this for anywhere else, and I get that. But if this is important to all of us, like I've heard everyone say, you know, this is it. So we get one chance of building it, because if we don't do it, we come back, it doesn't either happen, or we're just gonna spend more money to rip up something that we built to add on to it, and then it's just construction that happens. So I asked that question, then if we're wondering where this in mystery, the extra 500,000, it isn't that number. But it does hold us back for being able to spend it somewhere else. So.
Yeah. We can, I like that it puts pressure to go find money elsewhere through grants, and it totally dissipates some of that pressure that I'm saying this out loud with everybody, but we can always return the Urban Renewal Board, and it's a priority from everybody here, and the majority of the people here move forward onto the Urban Renewal Board. We can always reconvene as an Urban Renewal Board to
Add 500,000.
to add some money. But what I'd like to do is leave some pressure to go and find it.
And I was gonna add, I like what the mayor's saying, but I wanted to suggest it too, Jeremy, that we just did the whole thing. But I have 2 more priorities in there, and it's about the police working with health partners for helping address homelessness, which we don't have a budget for. We don't know how much it's gonna cost and where that money's gonna come from. So I think leaving some of that money out will allow some of those other
But
projects.
that can't be spent, spent out of urban renewal.
But it will be spent out of that contingency that
That's,
we have.
and that's my suggestion of using this out of the urban renewal. It saves money in the contingency of the other side. So that brings back to my point. And the other thing is if we go and raise it, I get that, I think it's great, it will just take some time, right? Which every month is inflation and everything else.
Let's have a motion to see how much of the renewal we want to spend for phase 2 of the park plan. And so get a motion saying we want to make it 1.5 or 1 million. We'll make the motion, we'll take a vote on the motion, and then we'll approve the urban renewal budget.
Well, I'll make a motion that we allocate $1 million out of the Urban Renewal funds to the Sandy Community Campus Skateboard Pump Track project.
Yes.
Also,
Okay.
I have a second, first, a motion by Stan, a second by Dan and Don to approve the 1 million out of the urban renewal for the second phase of the park. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Discussion at all? Oh, go ahead. Dan. I'm sorry. I just said
Because
approval.
when we're talking about the 500, so my vote is based on what about the general fund? And if we take the 500 out of the general fund, then we only have 1 million, so my
So
vote
you
is,
want it to be 1.5
well,
out of the urban renewal. I'm fine.
Can we straw poll 1.5 versus 1 before?
I
we
guess
take a motion?
there's been a motion in a second, but there's a discussion.
Discussion.
And I
go
guess, and I understand, why, I guess the question I'd have is, I thought a better way to, no disrespect, to do it would be, the question is more, everyone would probably do the 1 because we want it to pass. The question is how many people wanted the 1.5? So if we're voting no, we're not really voting on the 1, we're voting on the, but then it fails anyway. So
That's
that
why
I
I said
just,
straw poll.
I'm caught in that,
Well,
I'm
yeah,
caught in this.
I would go for the
catch-22.
but I support $1 million, so now I call the question.
So.
But everyone
Well,
does.
no, I know we do, we have a motion and it's been
Well, that's
seconded.
why I'm doing that. I don't support the 1.5.
But that's fine, but the majority may do it the other
But
way.
that's why I called the
Joe.
question.
Rich,
And Robert,
would you support the 1.5?
I need to call point of order.
Okay, well,
I've called the question on
On
the
the what?
motion and the
now we have
second.
a second. Okay,
Chair, would you like to do a roll call vote?
sure, do a roll call vote.
Committee member Huber,
You're,
was that a yes? Committee member?
yes.
Committee member Myron,
No.
committee member Smallwood appears to have left the meeting temporarily. Okay. Committee member Pietzel,
support both, but I'm gonna say no, because I'd like to have 1.5.
Committee Member Hokinson,
Yes.
Chair Malone,
No,
Committee Member Pulliam,
Yes.
Committee Member Lee,
yes,
Committee Member Becker,
I don't think it's gonna be enough, no.
Committee Member Mayton,
If it's all sure, I'm a no.
Committee Member Walker,
Yeah, if it's all Sura, it's a no.
Committee Member Exner,
Yes.
Committee Member Sheldon,
No.
Committee Member Schneider, I apologize.
Yes. Yes.
Tally the votes, Chair.
Yeah, I don't understand what that line.
7-6.
6 yes, 7 no.
Yes, Chair, the motion fails. It's 6 yeses and 7 nos.
Do we have any other motions?
Make a motion for 1.5 for phase 2.
Second.
and would that include the 500,000?
We're not,
No,
that's a
I
different
agree.
budget.
That's, yeah,
I
that's,
just want to be sure I know what I'm voting for.
I would maybe ask for modification of that to kind of a not to exceed 1.5, kind of based on what we find out with the other,
With the other
allocation.
From a, sorry, from a budget perspective, it's 1.5.
That's what we're.
For discussion?
Yeah.
I would say I would disagree with that, because what happens if we don't get it in the regular budget? And what happens if we don't get some of them? So I'm concerned about not to exceed.
What I was saying is, when we set the budget, it's just setting a budget. It's not not to exceed. When you do contracts later
And
against
we
the
can
budget,
increase it
then you
later
can
on.
do- then you can do a not to exceed against.
Have a second on,
It was online.
Yes, we can do
oh,
online.
online, okay.
Before you
Let's
discuss.
do it. We can still be in
Yeah,
discussion,
so don't
but
leave.
we have 6 minutes till Bill has to leave.
That's fine, but in discussion here, I really don't feel like the committee has the right amount of information that we've received to know what going up to like a 1.5, like, do we even understand? We're now past that 1.4 marker. Do we understand what the long-term ramifications of the budget are gonna be? What that does to us in the short term of the budget for this year? I worry that we're going beyond kind of a comfort zone that we could have easily made into something that's a lot more dangerous.
Mayor, I'm less worried just because what I said earlier is it is just the budget. And any proposal has to come to council and to the CERB board for actual approval. And I think the intent of what you and I want in terms of being aggressive, going after grants and everything, I think we have an opportunity to make sure that happens.
and we still have to.
Still
We
have
still
to-
have
Sure.
400.
Yeah. Rich,
No, I want to hear what Jordan had to say. real quick.
I just want to make one statement about this, the project costs in general, but a couple points. First, this is a planning level estimate. We don't have a 30% design estimate yet, or 60% or 90%. So this is a budget. This is our best guess of what the project's gonna cost. I have to do this now because, project costs for public projects always change as we evolve. And so, it's yet to be seen in terms of getting a final design and getting a estimate on that, and of course, opening up the bids, right?
Right.
So I have to put that out there, that this is just a planning level estimate done by, design consultants on what the construction market is like today, similar projects, et cetera. And things can change. This, if you deduct 1.5, it's coming out of contingency, be moved into capital outlay. There's still 2.5 million that would roll forward into the next year. And unless we issue any more bonds or anything like that, that's another 1.4 million that would be in the next biennium.
that would be in that
be
part
tax
you're prepared
dollars.
for. So it's not like you're robbing the bank.
Yeah, I think we're all in a lot of agreement. What I'm hearing is that we all want 1.5. With 1 million from Sura and 500 from the general fund. And with the donations and all that, I think that's what, I thought
And
that,
you have
What?
an ability as a
we
council.
don't, I thought that's what was being
Reconvene.
proposed.
No,
No,
it's not.
no.
So that was my worry.
This is 1.5 out of the zero, right?
No, what I was saying was that originally proposed, the reason I just voted no on this was because all of a sudden the 500,000 on the general fund was
In jeopardy.
off the,
That's
taken
not
off.
what these guys think. These guys think they're gonna go take the 500,000 from that too.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to say
Yeah.
here is that I think for myself, I think if we're in violent agreement that, we have at least $1 million from Sura and 500,000 from the general fund. If we're taking the general fund off the table, then I want 1.5 per million, but I agree with, what you guys have said is having a total of 1.5, having incentives for donations and things like that. And then also having the ability to come back to
Well,
Sura.
I'm
if we
comforted by
need to.
Jordan's statement that 2.5 is still gonna carry forward.
I think what I said, that the last part was that, if all that ends up being short, we don't get rent or whatever, we still can come back to the Sura, like you said, later. So I think we're all in agreement that we want 1.5 total.
Jake,
Not-
that's not
not
what we're voting on.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we're voting on
That's what-
the
No,
one-
no,
we're
that's
voting
it,
on the
1.5
1.5 if we
combined
have.
Sura and
That's
general
not what
fund.
these guys are agreeing to.
Okay.
These guys want $2 million total.
We're not.
They're
voting
proposing-
on the separate budget.
No, what we're
That's
saying
not
is,
it.
what I said,
That's
not
not
what
it.
we're-
Okay,
That's not it.
right now, we're voting on the 1.5, and I'd like a roll call vote.
Well, I mean, here's the thing though, right? We can't be guaranteed the other way. So here's the thing, in a minute, when we close this meeting and this money, I just confirmed with Jordan on the other side, that 500,000 has not been, I want 1.5 million there so we don't build something janky.
Total.
That's where I'm at, yes. I don't care whether it comes from Sura, but when this other budget comes up, if a bunch of other projects, be it BHU
Right,
or whatever comes up,
Right,
I
right.
want to make sure we fund 1.5 million.
correct.
We can take $500,000 from this budget, which is what my plan is, and put it back into Sura, and you are at 1 million out of Sura net. Does that make sense?
If that's,
But then we
If you wanna do
guarantee ourselves $1.5 million for this project. Does that make sense?
No,
Okay.
not to me. It's just not to me.
my point on that was 1.5, that comes out of this. The other 500,000 can then be spent on all those other things. The 1.5 came out of
Well, I
this
got a
budget.
point of order now,
So they
too,
want to spend
because
the
we are
money.
on this budget right now, we're
Correct.
not on the next budget,
Correct.
and I'm gonna call for a roll call vote while Phil is still here for another minute.
This is, he's left.
He's not
gonna-
Whatever.
So let's just go ahead and do a roll call vote on the 1.5 that was a motion.
1.5 from Sura.
I'm sure.
Correct.
All right, starting online, committee member Huber,
No.
committee member Myron,
Yes.
committee member Smallwood appears to have not rejoined us yet. Committee member Pietzel,
Yes,
committee member Hokinson,
Yes.
committee, Chair Malone,
Yes.
committee member Pulliam.
Only because I know we're gonna turn around and try to take 500,000. I want a $1.5 million budget. That's not what's being proposed here. We're gonna end up with $2 million, so I'm a no.
Committee member Lee,
I'll vote yes for the 1.5, but I won't vote for the 500 in the other budget.
That's still gonna get spent.
committee member Becker,
Yes.
committee member Mayton,
Yes.
committee member Walker,
Yes.
committee member Exner,
No.
committee member Sheldon.
Yes.
Tally that motion did pass, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the urban renewal budget.
I think we approved the urban renewal budget.
Second it, moved by Don, seconded by Kathleen, that we approve the urban renewal budget. Roll call vote.
Committee member committee member Myron,
Yeah.
committee member Pietzel,
yes.
committee member I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you heard him.
Oh, committee member Huber, did you vote yes?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Committee member Hokinson,
Yes.
Chair Malone,
Yes.
committee member Pulliam,
Abstain.
committee member Lee,
Yes.
committee member Becker,
Yes.
committee member Mayton,
Yes.
committee member Walker,
Yes.
committee member Exner,
Yes.
committee member Sheldon.
Yes.
One down, one to go. Thank you. Now we're back to the City of Sandy Biennium and,
Sure, we take 5 minutes.
sure, you can take 5 minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and reconvene and open up the Sandy annual or biennium budget.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, Don has the floor to make a motion.
Wrote this one down. I'm going to pass out handouts and then make the motion because I think it'd be easier. And one of the challenges I had with last year's is that the numbers start flying around and I can't keep track of what I'm approving and not approving. So this, and I will, as soon as I pass them out, I'll go through the motion and what's changed from what Tyler passed out. So. And if there's disagreements, I would encourage you to modify my motion. Yeah, I get that.
I second the motion.
Is there an electronic version?
Yeah, I'll get it. Oh, I need one.
Yes, yes, I have time to change
Oh,
the next one.
okay.
Yep.
It became
So the
pretty-
motion
Right.
is to approve the proposed biennium budget as included in the staff report with the following modifications to that $959,000 budget, which you remember Tyler's spreadsheet. It includes the reduction to the aquatic recreation fund of $36,000. It includes, and then it increases the information tech department by $30,000, the general fund recreation $15,000. These amounts match what came out in the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
They're ordered a little different, but the amounts are the same. The planning, $50,000, the $5,000 arts maintenance, $30,000 for the police staffing study, $50,000 for setting that master plan, $100,000 for the Winterfest lights. The $65,000, this item is not on your list, but you'll see that it's the amount that totals up to the $959, but it's the additional money to go to the economic development to do the business side of Winterfest. Basically, we talked about lighting programs to light up businesses down the downtown corridor. The library, $150,000 for the outreach vehicle. I have modified the purpose of that, and I've noted that in addition to that library outreach vehicles, in collaboration with Meals on Wheels and Senior Services, and the Parks Capital Fund of $500,000. I know we had a lot of talk about that, so I expect some discussion. Finally, but let me finish the motion, then we can go. We talked about, as part of the motion to approve the budget, to rename the telecommunications budget to SandyNet, and so I've included that in the end of the motion as well.
And do something set different with the 500,000.
So that's the motion I want to put out there. It can be seconded or modified.
I got a modify.
I have a question on one of the items, which is the $5,000 for art mural maintenance. That's not
so
enough.
minimal.
That is not enough.
Yeah.
Because we don't have just the mural. We don't just have the mural in the park.
$500,000.
It's $5,000. And to me, the last time that we spent money on maintaining and keeping, the investment we made in all of the murals, all of them, the one on City Hall, the one on the Senior Center, the one on the plaza, and the ones down in Miney Park on the playground structure. 5,000 isn't gonna cut it.
I know of three, sorry, go ahead.
I just have a modification to what Don suggested.
Okay,
I concur with everything except for that line item for 500,000.
okay.
My suggestion, if possible, is can we take that 500,000 and put it in city council contingency? That way the city council can control where that money goes if it's needed for the park later or for another project at a later time. We're not putting it back in the sewer because we got the 1.5 out of sewer, but we'll put it in the city
Someplace where you
council.
can control
We
it.
can control.
Yes.
And we're not dedicating it to the parks. We're gonna get the community to work for that.
I
Extra
trust in the
money.
council's discretion to use it appropriately.
Can I make an amendment?
Second. Oh, make it.
Well, we're still,
I would like to make an amendment to Chris's. I agree. Take that off of the parks. That was the whole point of that. But one thing I don't see on here, and I'm a big fan of, is eliminating some of our debt. And getting rid of some of the interloan debt and the remainder of that going into that fund.
It's just such a small, low interest rate. It's like, it
Well,
doesn't have a
That,
monetary
that's
financial.
just, that was my,
I
I
agree
like
with
paying
you.
that off too.
I agree with you.
because it held over.
And
just on the debt with, and I love our police services. But I've been sitting here as mayor going on my 5th year. And this is the first time during our budget process that the police department has come forward, and it wasn't even during the presentation. It was afterwards on a presented project list to address their debt through this process with the transit department. I'm disappointed in that. I feel like as budget committee members, as counselors, we should be aware of those kinds of debt service needing to be paid. I don't think it should be something that is funded, and I appreciate you leaving it off your motion. I can also.
I'll go to you, then to Rich.
Okay, I want to amend the art plan to be art repairs and maintenance to at least triple that. 15 grand is
I would
pretty
say
pitiful amount of money,
$20,000.
but it's far closer to what we're going to need this next 2 years. We have 3 murals that are needing repair
I
and
think
and maintenance
10,000 a
right
year.
now, not counting the other pieces and parts of the art that we've got. And 15 grand, another 10 grand for art, it's pretty minimal amount. Carl, where do you?
Another 15 or 15?
Well, you've got the $500,000. I assume, in my mind, that's gone. You've got the 500 grand for implementation of phase 2 minutes. That we already accounted for that, and I don't want that there.
Yeah, no, for the art though, do you even have planned maintenance that money needs to be allocated for?
It needs to be there. if-
What do
they
you
need
want?
maintenance right
You've
now.
given me nobody to do any work. You kept, not you personally, but the entire council has stopped me again and again for doing anything with art. How am I supposed to get anything, keep from falling apart?
When
At
you
least
have
having some sort of money. And that parks take care of. the
Let me
repairs.
know when it comes up, Dick. I'll come down and testify when you're asking for something, because I agree.
Chair, don't we have an extra 36,000 at the bottom of that for the reduction in insurance that's not included in that 959, so isn't it actually 995?
So
Yeah, it
in
is.
the amount that I showed you, the 36,000 is at the top of the line, and so it's reflected negative. It's already there.
But in your 959, but what I'm saying is,
That's what we had
it's
to begin
it's
with.
959 is what we had to begin with. When you add the 36 insurance savings, then it actually becomes 995.
But he added 65 for the Winterfest business lights. So
Okay, there's
It adds up.
offsets.
Rich and I.
No,
Rich,
please
ahead.
go, Kathleen. I'll see if we.
Okay, I just have some questions like for what these are. So, for example, the Sandy Net plan, I thought that was one of, Tyler, I thought the Sandy Net plan was one of the goals outlined. I'm sure it was in the presentation. And so we're asking, is this more money or did they forget to ask for it or what?
No, there's some funds built into the existing proposed Sandy Net budget. The assumption was with the funds that we built into the proposed budget for Sandy Net was that staff would be leading much of that effort. This 50,000 would allow for a consultant to help throughout the process of a rate study and a more
Okay,
formal master
That's
plan.
good. Thanks. The second question I had was, all of a sudden, the library mobile, what do you call that? Library,
Outreach vehicle.
well, a bookmobile and a thing to carry Meals on Wheels is 2 different things. Because one's got a bunch of coolers in it, make temperatures, control the temperatures, and the other one is full of books. So are we saying that we're gonna use the same thing? I mean, that's where I'm kind of all of a sudden confused, and Sarah's confused too. So, but I did hear that mentioned, this outreach vehicle that gets used for both bookmobile and Meals and Wheels. Is that what that means?
I would
So,
take out Bills on Wheels and
doesn't-
senior services.
It doesn't say the word collaborate. It just needs to be in partnership, whether that bookmobile is going, I'm not suggesting in my motion that to provide any sort of design constraints on what that vehicle looks like and how it's outfitted.
Well, I just,
So I think what that came off of was a conversation that the two of us had, where I was talking about how other communities will team up, for example, with their local food pantry, like the Action Center or something, and that they'll combine efforts. Here's our library mobile, here's our food pantry. They're doing community outreach. And I think what Don was just trying to address was the overall want for collaboration in that regard, not that this money needs to go towards an extra allocation or an additional service or anything like that.
I'm just trying to.
What he said.
Okay.
So no purchase Just collaboration is what we're talking.
Yeah, the purchase would just be for the library portion.
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
more the library.
Library outreach vehicle.
Yes.
Okay.
And the last
And I
question,
would assume that that outreach vehicle would hit our various senior centers,
Yeah.
because we bring them books anyway, but this would be a more comprehensive outreach to them.
and then the last question I had with that was this, just clarification on this Winterfest business lighting. Does that mean the businesses are paying for this, or you're getting money from them and matching it, or all of a sudden,
At this point, it's-
Winterfest business, you know, we're already spending 100,000. But I mean, I'm just kind of trying to
So
understand.
once again, it's setting money into the economic development fund so that they can determine what that program should look like. So whether it's seed money or outright grants or services that they do on their behalf, whatever, those details, I'm not suggesting one way or the other right now.
Just want to have a place.
Yes.
Rich.
So I'd like to support Carl a little bit, mostly because I really admire his dedication.
Yes.
But I will concede that as you drive, that our art needs some work. And what I would propose is that whether it be from the 100,000, but I would propose probably the 65,000, that we move 10,000 of that, so make that 55,000 up into the
Art mural
art
maintenance.
mural.
As long as it's paintings of Santa.
So I.
We need to fight.
I propose that it comes out, I mean, I'm open for debate, because I'm fine with either one, but the way I would look at it is a 65 for general fund economic development. That we remove 10,000 up there and put it under our.
Okay, can I see a show of hands who are in favor of moving the 10,000 from the 65 up to mural art maintenance?
So I had another thing that I had my hand up for before.
Okay,
I would like to see the 10,000 for the equipment for the police and 15 for art. So the equipment is a longer term purchase, not the police training, which would be.
there is no training on this list.
Nope, I took, so.
Well,
not
obviously there was training in there.
So
Right.
training, ammunition, and equipment, firearm, radars are not on the list.
And
Oh, is that
and
what
why
that
are
is?
they not on
There are
the
three. I didn't put them on the list because I felt like they were so insignificant relative to the contingency in the police budget that it didn't warrant our attention.
Have a contingency in police force that can-
That's right. We were told that the budget was good.
So did we decide about the art? Are we moving that direction? I want to make sure.
So we aren't dealing with the police thing now, so it's just the 10,000 coming out of that 65, making that 55, and 10,000 in the art maintenance. Can I see a show of hands who are in favor for that? What's the total for art then? 15. Okay,
And that includes
You
moving
struggle,
the
don't
fire
you,
station.
that amendment passed. That's just one amendment that passed.
Come on,
Moving the
support the arts.
10 up
Come on,
there and
we can do
55
that.
in that thing. And, okay, the other one that was proposed was the 500,000 going into,
Has that been
well, you
proposed yet?
wanted to take some of that and put it.
No, I said that 500,000 not to go to the parks,
Uh-huh.
to use that, my amendment would then be to use that to pay for the police,
The
the
311.
inner thousand, which, and the Sandy Net, but the total of that was 151,000 for police, 160,000 from telecommunications, which is a total of 311 out
Right,
of that to pay for, to,
So that's a
just
motion.
to eliminate the debt.
that's a motion by Jeremy.
second.
Who's in favor of that? Raise your hand.
Figure.
That one failed. That one's
But-
not. gonna
but
be-
I would still- Not have the 500,000 going.
Right, so
So
we
that's
have
the
a
new
motion, we have a motion of the 500,000 that I think you made
Yeah, to go to city council.
to go to city council contingency.
That's the
To-
entire 500. We wouldn't take anything out of it, right? Go someplace else.
Well, that was.
Then it would be up to the council to decide.
Okay. I want to know what I'm voting for.
Kathleen,
Clarification on Sandy Net, because I remember the budget that showed y'all were gonna be kind of hitting these balloon payments here in a couple of years to Sandy Net. Does paying
The balloon payments for the library loan.
that's the library. loan.
For the library?
Not even-
No, there is a balloon payment
No,
for
there's a
the
balloon payment for the
Sandy
Sandy
Net at the end of the bond. it ranks,
It starts ramping up, but there's not a balloon payment
Okay,
due
sorry.
of a substantial portion. It's
But
just
Tyler, I
that's
thought in
different.
your-
That's a different.
that wasn't included in this listing.
In your
whatsoever.
presentation, you had the rates or something was going way up or how much you had to pay.
In 3
Yeah.
years, there's a balloon payment
In
for
the
the
next
library
biennium.
loan, because those loans that we have on the library construction were only 5-year loans. The lender that we have doesn't do a traditional 30-year mortgage, so we refinance it every 5 years.
That would be the
So
next
I'd like
biennium.
to set,
Okay. so
board
then-
member, whatever we're called.
So-
John's gonna take it away from me.
Just a clarification, Chair and Mayor and Council. You know,
Can't do that?
well, the general fund contingency, I mean, the council has the ability to redirect that budget.
Yes, but we don't want it to get lost.
Well, it would be non-departmental with the rest of the general fund.
And where the
contingency versus-
$259,000 is right now,
You
that
can
would
just,
that would bump to 300.
it can just sit in our council.
You want to put 500,000 into the city council's
Contingency.
Yes.
contingency and
That's
100,
good.
the budget of
You can call it the
$131,000.
park contingency if you want.
Okay.
We want it to go ahead and sit in our council.
Yes.
That's the motion.
That is,
And we got a second?
and I second.
Can somebody catch me up to speed on what we're voting for here?
No.
You're responsible for a lot.
Yeah.
In the urban renewal budget, they put 1.5 million towards the second phase of the park. You weren't here to vote, but that passed pretty overwhelmingly.
Not really.
It was 9-6.
No,
Oh, the second
the
time.
second one, yeah, it was
But
only.
so now we're
Somebody
talking
say-
about taking the 500,000 that would have gone to the park and just putting it in a contingency fund for the council to decide on later. Maybe rainy day, maybe whatever else. Is that what's?
Maybe maintenance, maybe behavioral health, maybe more
Stuff.
murals. Yeah.
So Laura,
No.
Homeless. No.
Kathleen, you had something?
The behavior health thing that was on the proposal here, I just have real concerns about that, because the reason we have so much of this play money, I mean, not play money, but surplus right now is because a lot of these are ARPA funds. And so my concern is that, when we talk about doing behavior, I understand the homeless issue, but talking about funding a behavior health position or whatever that is.
It's not on John's list.
I know it's not on Don's list, it was on the original.
Right,
list.
right.
And so we've heard people talk about that, and I'm just commenting on my concern that when we talk about making that a position, that's a whole nother, like, a new department, social services for the homeless. And it's a continuous funding that then in the next biennium, we're gonna have to take it out of everybody's
Well, that's why
budget.
we're not putting it in this money, because this is one-time money, not ongoing.
Well, anyways, I've said with these, so.
Yeah.
Lori,
I don't want.
Lori, I emailed you Dawn's proposed budget just now.
Thank you. It's very difficult when a bunch of people are talking at once. You can't understand anything.
So going on to this vote though, Lori, so you understand. The Sura board earlier this evening did 1.5 million to go towards the park and not $1 million. But what's being suggested in this recent motion is that we take 500,000 from our general fund and put it into our council contingency so that we have options with that. Basically, we shifted the funds around a little bit, but it's all equaling out to the same at the end of the day.
We have a lot more flexibility.
And we have more flexibility with it in the general fund than we do with our Sura funds.
And you gave me some money for art.
And we gave Carl some money. for
Oh,
No,
art.
we
Somebody,
gave
it's not my money.
money to
Art-
maintain
art- not my
murals.
money.
Hey, can I ask a question about the syrup, not the syrup, the ARPA funding, is this for ARPA funding?
Yes,
It was.
Do we need to have it allocates to something? Or can it sit in a contingency fund? Meaning, there are certain rules that,
we've accepted the money, it's done.
It's
It's
already
ours.
going to general fund.
right, but there were rules that said that, will they change or? Okay, I just want to make sure that we've met those so that we aren't in.
The short answer is we've met all of the ARPA
Okay,
obligations
that's all I
and the funds available now.
Just want to come back later and like, oops.
So are there any other changes to Carl's motion?
Well,
I think it was Chris's.
Chris's motion and Don seconded it.
to move it into contingency.
Let's do a roll call on that.
Sure. One thing I just want to mention, just so it's on the record, the first item, the reduction, that will result in increasing the transfer from the Aquatic Recreational Center Fund to the general fund.
Okay,
Because
so it's not part of this.
it is, but the way it would be reflected in the budget is we'll increase the transfer out of that fund into the general fund.
Okay.
But it's a net wash.
Decreasing.
500,000 would be
in order to
464,000.
increase the transfer out. And
into
then there's
your-
gonna be an increase in transfer in on the general fund side.
So
to account for
36
that
into the
additional-
general fund, 464 into the council contingency fund or whatever.
Maybe we need to.
Yeah, no, that part, no.
No, doesn't matter.
I think it's.
What are we voting for?
Transfers will
We're
increase in the
voting
general
for the
fund.
money that was gonna go to the parks to go into the council control,
Just the 500.
Yeah.
just the
So they're
500,
just voting on this right
just the 500
Oh,
right now.
now. Just on the 500. Okay.
Not the full.
Roll call.
Ready for roll call? Okay.
Yeah.
Committee member Huber,
No.
committee member Myron, okay, for that as a non-vote. Committee member Petzold,
Yes.
committee member Hokinson,
Yes.
Chair Malone,
Yes,
committee member Pulliam. Yes. Committee member Lee,
Yes.
committee member Becker,
Yes.
committee member Mayton,
Yes.
committee member Walker,
Yes.
committee member Exner,
Yes, for art.
we're not voting on
committee member
that.
Sheldon.
Yes.
Yes,
See what I've been dealing with, Sam?
Do I get to vote or no?
Committee member Smallwood, I'm sorry.
Yes.
and
I vote.
Oh, no is.
Oh, okay. Committee member Myron, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I also would like to be assured that when the council decides to allocate these funds at a council meeting, that I would get a heads up and be able to attend.
Absolutely.
Just, I trust,
Check our website.
but verify.
Check our website. All right, do we have a clean motion for
We
the
have a
rest?
clean motion for the rest, so,
No, one more
yes,
question.
one more question.
I was looking at your 50,000 for the Sanford master plan and finding the 43,000 in last meeting's income not shown for the IT department. I would think that 43,000 could just about pay for that whole 50,000, leaving 7 that could be taken out of the contingency in the IT department, and you could eliminate that whole 50,000.
But that was when they were gonna do it by themselves, and now they're hiring consultants.
But
To
the
help.
43,000 would pay for. Which 43,000?
Was there 43
Yes.
extra in the budget? that
Oh, I
wasn't-
gotta find that one.
You were referring to the miscellaneous revenue that has come in? this-
Miscellaneous revenue.
Yeah,
shows
so
0.
the beginning balance that's reflected in the proposed budget already takes into account all miscellaneous revenue and anything else that is,
Even though it shows a 0.
because all that's shown in that budget document is the
Going
current
forward.
biennium's budget. We don't have a column for the current biennium projected year end. The beginning balance in the project or proposed budget for 23-25 reflects all anticipated revenue and expenditures. through
Including
June
the
30th
43.
This year.
So I think we have I can make a clean motion with the things that I think
Amendments
have-
as cited,
I think so.
as voted on.
All right, so basically it'll read, I move that yada, yada, yada as written. And we will modify, yeah.
Or just your motion as amended.
My motion as amended, and the amendments would include an increase to the general fund parks, buildings and grounds for art to be 15,000 instead of the prior 5. The economic development fund increase to be reduced from 65 to 55. And then the parks capital fund 500 would be struck, and instead it would be a 500,000 additional to council contingency.
Second.
By Don, second by Stan, and we'll take a roll call vote for this one too.
This is just
Just on this,
Yeah, not on the budget.
not on the whole budget. The whole budget will be the next motion.
Okay, committee member Smallwood.
No, this is-
Were you afraid you were gonna forget?
I can let that happen again.
Yes.
Thank you. Committee member Huber,
Hold on.
Yes,
Just a second. This is not just, I think it's for the whole budget,
The whole.
the whole budget.
Including,
Open up a public hearing again. We're still in the public. And his motion is say the whole budget
With this allocation.
with these allocations of the ARPA funds at the bottom.
So this is the this is what I'm
This
saying.
is
This
it.
is the last one.
This is
That's what I
it.
thought. Yeah.
well, you gotta wait then.
Should we start over with that clarification?
Start over with that clarification. We're approving the whole budget with the allocation of the funds as listed and amended.
Committee member Smallwood,
Yes.
committee member Huber,
yes,
committee member Myram,
yes,
committee member Petzold, committee member Hokinson,
Yes.
Chair Malone,
Yes.
committee member Pulliam,
That's how the sausage is made. Yes.
committee member Lee,
Yes.
committee member Becker,
No,
committee member Mayton,
Yes.
committee member Walker,
Yes.
committee member Exner,
a clean and unrestrained, yes.
and committee member Sheldon.
Yes.
And I would like to thank everybody for your 4 weeks of diligence and attendance and we're getting through the process.
Just have one more, Chair.
One more.
The tax
Motion
rate.
for the tax rate.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was wondering about that.
You
tax rate.
know,
Right.
oh, that's right. We have to pay for all this.
Which, you know,
So
just a
who wants to make a
formal
motion? Who wants to
What
make
is
a
the
motion?
motion?
Is it $4?
It's 4.1152.
I make a motion that we adopt the tax base of 4.1152 for $1,000
of assessed
value for our budget for 2005.
Second.
Moved by, second. That we approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
We are done.
already.
Any opposed? No nays.
No.
All right.
Thank
Oh,
thank
one
you.
no,
Thank you.
one
Chair.
nay.
Thank you, Chair.
So no.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Good having you.